It is 7 a.m. and oh my God, is it storming right now. Just to give you an idea, all that was dry yesterday, and this entire place is a swamp now. It was bone dry yesterday. There was no water here at all. That fucking swamp is filled up very quickly. I got the milling set up out there under the tarp, which is likely still getting fucking wet. I hope I battened everything down well enough. We got a fucking river running through the middle of camp. The fire pit is completely flooded out. This is absolutely fucking insane. Absolutely insane. Back out here today, and I'm actually here by myself. It's Wednesday morning-ish, and 7 a.m. We got a ridiculous thunderstorm. I'll leave a clip of that in here for you, or possibly just already. And yeah, it was nuts. It was nuts. It woke us up, and Mike decided not to pull his trailer out today because it's just too nuts, right? Like, have a look at it. Like, all this was totally dry yesterday. Like, this is like 3 feet deep now. There's a bunch of holes over there. They're soaked. The creek's all nasty and wet. And I mean, it is just an absolute swamp out here, I'm telling you. But this is kind of what it's more like generally out here in McLean. It's always swampy and gross, so kind of feels like home. Anyways, so it looks like we learned a whole lot over the last couple days milling with both different saws. So I was using my old 61, which is not designed for milling whatsoever, and I've done hundreds of board feet with it. As you guys saw in the sauna videos there, I ran all those boards with the old saw, and it went relatively well. Although, you know, there was some issues and it wasn't the cleanest cuts, we did make some good progress. So I decided to get something a little bit more powerful to make this a little bit quicker and easier, because it was taking, you know, 15-20 minutes of cutting plus like a 20-minute, half an hour break to let the saw cool. So it was really inefficient. So I picked up something a little bigger that's more efficient, that's meant for milling, a little bit more power, and we can do these cuts in about 6 minutes flat. Today we're actually going to be fixing some of the issues that we learned about. So we learned that you want to have your sawmill rig, this thing here, you want to have this set up so that the gap for your bar is as close to the size of the wood as possible. You don't want any overheat. When we were using the longer bar yesterday, we ended up learning that it kind of bends and bows as you're trying to cut, so it causes some weird things to happen. Well, we learned several different ways of mounting the sled. So the sled is step one to make your first cut. And based on a few things that me and Mike were discussing, we actually found a better way to mount it to an uneven surface where you're going to get a better cut every time. So what we did is we actually took the sled and put it back on the damaged cut on the other log from the milling chain with the regular chain, and made a nice clean cut to continue on, and we went from there. So that worked really well. And how we mounted it is essentially you want to mount the pieces to the workpiece first, right? So you got your sled like this, and then there's cross pieces. Think of a ladder, right? And so you want to mount these pieces first. Once you get them mounted to here, then you mount your sled level, using a level. So you want to be level laterally if possible. It's not as important to be level this way. You can be on an angle. A lot of guys will do it kind of downhill, so you're not pushing the saw uphill. That would make it a bit easier, and that's kind of what we're doing here. We've got a bit of a slope going to the forward of the trailer, but we are working both ways. I mean, we had really good progress doing the massive log that we got several shots of the other day. And that was the biggest log that we've done yet, and it was also the absolute max limit of my saw, so it was a pretty interesting experience doing that. But we didn't have any deflection of the bar, really. We did have a little bit of issue when we hit a couple of knots, like serious knots. It deflected the chain, which caused us to figure out that we believe that the bar, which was used when I got it, is starting to get pretty worn out. So I may be able to do a bit of repair on that using a belt sander, just keeping things square. But I'm not 100% sure on that. So we'll have to see. For now, we're just going to be using regular chain, not milling chain, not ripping chain. And we're going to be using the bracket, of course. And we're going to do some repairs on some of the issues that got caused yesterday with the longer bar and the milling chain. So the difference between milling chain and regular chain is milling chain is filed to like 10 to 15 degrees, whereas regular chain's like 35-degree angle. Regular chain looks more like this, so you can see these really sharp teeth with really sharp points on them. I don't have milling chain with me right here, it's over there, but it's much smoother and almost doesn't have a point at all, actually. Measure out from the bottom of the level to there, so we can get a ballpark going. We need to get the mill set up to around 4.5, so it helps a little bit. These retainer brackets right here, you have bends over this piece. That really helps retain the whole setup, some rigidity while you're milling. I was having problems on this one too. I was having some problems last year with it coming apart, and now I'm not having it come apart when we're milling, so that's really good. There's that 4.5 area. Let's see how that looks. Just a little tension. Hold it in place. Move this onto the sled here. Wasn't tight enough. Awesome. Yeah, the weight of this saw is a bit of a different beast. Nothing's ever as easy as this. Another thing we learned yesterday, on the back of the log, you start right in on a square cut immediately, which is great. The indicator marks on this rig are actually basically lining the teeth of the saw up with that mark that I just took. We want to try to take out the entire black mark altogether if possible, which is not necessarily easy due to the weight of this saw. And that's looking right about good. The process is all about the setup, just like when you're on a lathe or a mill or really any complicated tool that's more than just your average hammer and screwdriver. Alright, it's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good. We're going to hit that line. Looks like all the way across on the top teeth, and then we're going to make quite a wide cut due to the fact that we're just using regular chain. But we're going to go ahead and run this and see what happens. And I'll tell you, this big bitch really hogs the gas. is how the pros do it. You don't need a funnel and you don't need to spill any. The odd drop here and there, but okay, now we just got to tighten up our retaining brackets before we actually start to saw. Time for the big reveal. Put a little rough near the back end here. That's pretty good. Alright, I just unscrewed the sled here from this board. Now, this side's a little messed up, but this side looks pretty good, and that's a usable board, especially if you throw that through the planer. That'll be just fine. Looking good to me. That's some progress. Just behind you here. So the plan here is I need some really thin bits of wood to coat the exterior of the sauna, because what I did with the wallpaper and glue did not work. It may have worked had I used more glue, like a lot more glue, but whatever. We're moving beyond that. So what I'm going to try to do here is use the sled to allow me to just get really thin cuts, maybe like just less than half an inch, you know? And from there we can rip them off and hopefully either throw them through the planer or not, and just leave it raw, and then coat them with some Helmsman. Going to make them last a really, really long time. It's also going to help me save a lot of weight. Any route I go is going to either cost a lot of money or save a lot of weight. So this route, I decided to invest in a chainsaw that's going to do this at record speed rather than investing in just the siding of the sauna. So I'm really hoping this is going to work. And yeah, let's figure this out. So I can get about 5.5 inches worth of thin pieces out of this. Except for, you got to take into account, chainsaw chain takes a lot of material out, and it leaves a lot of waste. As you can see here, that's just from one cut. We literally have piles of sawdust all over the ground, like a sandy beach over here. Kind of got to account for that, but I think this is going to be a good route to go, and we're going to get a good amount of veneers to get at least the front of the sauna looking fresh. Should be bang on for level, simply because the cut we made earlier is what this is riding on, so it should be very, very, very close. And it's actually out quite a bit, so we're gonna have to do a little bit of shimming, which is fine. We're just gonna use these pieces we used before. Off of the first veneer here, and worked out pretty good. It's really thin, it's not totally even, which is kind of what I was going for actually. And I think that's gonna work for what we need for the exterior of the sauna, as long as I don't break them on the way home now. Alright, let's see what we got. Nice consistency. It's very similar to the other one. That's fantastic.